If you're watching this video, it would be because you would like to visit this place in the foreseeable future and would like to have some basic understanding about this temple complex before going in to appreciate it more, as opposed to going to it blindly, not knowing much about it, trying to learn as much as you can about it right there and then within limited time. Or maybe you just want to marvel at the ingenuity online. Either way, I've made this video to provide an oversimplified explanation of this site with videos I took to equip viewers with adequate understanding of this temple which they can enjoy. Prambanan Temple is a Hindu temple complex located in Yogyakarta and is a protected UNESCO site. It was built in the region, which was a part of the Mataran Kingdom in the 9th century, a few decades after the completion of the nearby Buddhist temple Borobudur. At the time, the local population adhered to the teachings of either Buddhism or Hinduism. Numerous temples were constructed. However, the scale of this and Borobudur were the grandest. The reason for the construction of this is shrouded in mystery. Some say to assert the re-emergence of Hindu dominance in the region after the Sanjaya dynasty came into power that followed Hinduism, almost a century after Sailendra dynasty were in power, who followed Buddhism. Needless to say, projects like this are more than mere vanity projects. They project strength and influence, and in this case, Prambanan was to counter the Buddhist influence at the time. As mentioned, this is a temple complex as it consists of a number of temples, not just a singular. The largest one being the Shiva temple, which was also the first one constructed, towering at 47 meters high. This temple contains a number of idols, the largest one being Shiva Mahadeva, and because of this, the walls are patterned in mandala way, whereas other rooms, being not as significant, have no patterned walls at all. The statue of Shiva here has 3 eyes, the third eye being close enough to the forehead. Shiva's statue is wearing a crown with a skull and crescent on one of the hands, holding prayer beads, and the other 2 holding a feather duster and a trident, though not very visible in this in the statue. So this image shows a clearer depiction of what it looked like. This is the other statue in Shiva temple. Notice the wall does not have any patterns. This one is of Agastya with Shiva's trident, which is in the south chamber of the Shiva temple. Agastya is one of the more important figures in Indonesian Hinduism. It is said that he introduced Pahlavan Grantha script into the Indonesian archipelago from southern India, and this is actually the first recorded writing script used in the region. There's ancient artifacts discovered throughout the Indonesian archipelago, known as Nusantara, where Pahlavan script was used for inscriptions on them, like stone pillars, also known as yupa, which are kept in the National Museum of Indonesia, and then there's Siarutuan inscription on a huge natural stone, and then there's other stones out throughout the archipelago with inscriptions using the Pahlavan script. The Pahlavan script was later evolved to become the Kawi script, or the old Javanese script, to facilitate the local language sounds, and that was used heavily throughout the islands until the advent of Islam in the 15th century. And this is the other statue in the Shiva temple, being Durga. Notice there are no patterns on the wall here either. Durga is portrayed as having 8 arms holding weapons to symbolize strength, and holding a creature by the hair. Notice she's standing on a defeated bull, being Mahishasura. And the final statue of the Shiva temple is Ganesha. The complex was later expanded with the addition of further temples next to Shivas, being Brahma and Vishnu on each side, and then their respective Vahana temples in front. Hamza in front of Brahma, Nandi in front of Shiva, and Garuda in front of Vishnu. The placement of the Apit temples are on the sides, so this forms a main square where each side is approximately 110 meters in length. Outside this main square, there are 218 smaller temples as placed in concentric squares to the main square, and these smaller temples are all a meter away from one another, and unfortunately they've all been destroyed and are part of rubble due to natural disaster. The arrangement of all these temples follow the mandala layout, which is sacred to Hinduism, as it's a representation of harmony and balance of the universe. Other Hindu temple complexes conform to this, including the Angkor Wat in Cambodia, with its usage of circles and square grid arrangements of buildings, though it is easy to confuse Prambanan with Angkor Wat due to similarities. Prambanan predates Angkor Wat by 300 years, and the latter introduced more of its local Khmer architecture, where the temple spires on its sides are carved richly to make it look less pointier, shaped like a prang, looking more closer to a corn cob, whilst Prambanan temple spires are rougher on the edges and the spire looks sharper. Also, the scale of the two are not comparable, despite Prambanan being the second largest Hindu temple in Southeast Asia. Outside of the Shiva temple, you will notice people worshipping. However, they're not directly in front of the entrance of the temple, but rather to the left of it, so they're not facing Shiva statue at all. This is not because they're trying to avoid obstruction. At that spot they're in front of, there exists a small tiny chamber. The position of this chamber is very significant as it marks the exact center point of the main square of the complex, and in Hinduism the main idol to be worshipped would have to be placed in the center. And inside the chamber there is no idol at all. It is empty, hollow. And why is it empty? Because in Hindu scriptures, Para Brahman is the ultimate Brahman and is formless, transcends human concept of physical form and shape. And this is where the name of the temple complex comes from, Para Brahman. And also in local Javanese language, Para means multiple, so the name could mean multiple Brahmin priests congregated at this location, being a prominent Hindu center of learning, which is plausible as a scale of this temple complex and its proximity to the capital. At Shiva's Vahana temple, being Nandi, who happened to be an ardent worshipper of Shiva and is depicted as a bull. The ceiling of this temple had to be reconstructed due to collapse because of the 2006 earthquake, and next to Nandi's statue is a statue of Surya, which is the deity of the sun, the provider of light and heat, and is often depicted as riding a chariot with 7 horses. As you can see, the feet stands on 7 horses. And the final statue in the room, on the other side of Nandi, is Chandra, which is a deity of the moon, associated with night, plants and vegetation, and is depicted as being carried with 10 horses to symbolize 10 senses. One of the temples being next to Shiva is a Vishnu temple, with its Vahana being Garuda. Garuda is an eagle deity that also has huge significance in Indonesian Hinduism. This deity is said to possess virtues of knowledge, power, bravery, discipline and loyalty, and is said to be the king of birds. Garuda is represented in statues as a person with large wings, and all other times as a large eagle. Garuda is a part of Indonesia's national emblem, depicted as a golden eagle. Unfortunately, the statue of Garuda is not present in Garuda Temple, just as much as the statue of Hamza is not present in its temple outside of Brahma Temple. Throughout this temple complex, numerous temples have intricate hand-carved bas relief, including depictions of the Ramayana story, battles and triumphs of good versus evil. Needless to say, these carvings had to be done on site, so mistakes needed to be avoided. Ramayana story is written on the walls of Shiva temple, starting from the east entrance. In order to follow the story, we would have to view the reliefs in a specific order clockwise around the temple and carried on onto the Brahma temple. The construction of this temple used interlocking system to connect the stones together, not cement, which meant the stones had to be carved carefully, relying on gravity and pressure to hold them together in place, and that meant the stones had to be cut with such precision and measured in order to fit their intended places to ensure a tight and secure fit. This interlocking system proved to be efficient as the foundations of the larger temples remained intact even after 1,000 years, though the top of the spires had collapsed as a result of natural disaster. Just like Borobudur Temple, Prambanan faced the same fate, where it was abandoned, presumably same reasons why, and we can only speculate what the reasons were. Maybe a nearby volcano eruption, making this region uninhabitable, therefore shifting the capital eastwards, or political pressure from nearby empire, being the Srivijaya. It was later rediscovered a few centuries later by Dutch soldiers in the 18th century, and Stanford Raffles commissioned a full survey of the site in the 19th century, though it remained largely neglected for decades after.